Boulder, Colorado. And today we're talking about Stryd Footpath. We have an exciting new feature for you, and we have some awesome fatigue analysis data to be looking at as well on how you can use your Stryd Footpath data. So let's jump into it. As I said, the topic today is Footpath Auto Sync, which is a brand new feature that makes it easier to get your Footpath data than ever, and then fatigue analysis. So today we're rolling out a new update for Stryd Duo and the Stryd mobile app that makes it easier than ever to unlock your run insights. What this feature enables you to do is run your Stryd Duo, open up the Stryd mobile app after you finish running, and your Stryd Footpath data will automatically be pulled from your Stryd pods and be made available on your Stryd account. So as I said, this is now easier than faster than ever. All you have to do is go run and open up the Stryd app, and that data will automatically pull over. And this is a simple 3-step process. So place your Stryd Duo on your shoes, pair with your compatible phone or running watch to activate Stryd Duo. Once you come back from your run, all you have to do is open up the Stryd mobile app. You no longer have to go into settings, tap Stryd Duo, then tap Sync Stryd Footpath. All you have to do is open up the Stryd mobile app. Your Stryd pods will be discovered, and that Footpath data will be pulled from the pods and into your account. And then with the new calendar update we've done on Power Center, all you have to do is locate your activity and tap that Footpath icon. It will automatically jump you to that Footpath analysis. So this feature is available today. All you have to do is update the Stryd mobile app to the latest version on the App Store on your phone. That update is rolling out now. Once you've opened up that mobile app, all you have to do is update that Stryd Duo firmware. So we have a new firmware version that enables the auto sync, and then boom, it's enabled. So now that you have that Footpath data from your Stryd Duo pods, now the question is, how do you analyze that data? How do you get those actionable insights in order to make your run better? So as we know with Stryd Duo and Stryd Footpath, there's 5 key groundbreaking use cases. Number 1 is injury. Track your recovery process through quantifying subtle changes in your footpath as you recover from injury. Number 2 is drills. Quantify and visualize the impact of your drills on your footpath to determine if they're providing the intended benefits. Number 3 is footwear. Observe how different shoe choices reshape your footpath and contribute towards and impact your running. Number 4 is performance. Visualize your footpath to determine personalized indicators of how your footpath changes as your performance transforms. And then finally, fatigue, and that's what we're going to be looking at today. Monitor how and when you fatigue in and across your run so you can tailor your training to combat fatigue. And in order to analyze the footpath, we have to follow a structured 3-step analysis process. Number 1 is make accurate apples-to-apples comparisons. Number 2 is understand how your Stryd Footpath responds in order to, factors such as the footwear choice, the drills, incline, grade changes, surface changes, or for example, running duration and running intensity as it relates to fatigue. And then finally, number 3, how do we make that data actionable? How do we personalize the training in order to take our learnings from that Stryd Footpath and improve moving forward? So we're going to be looking at 3 fatigue analysis scenarios today. Number 1, we're going to be looking at the case of a 10K race. So recently we had the Boulder race here in Boulder, Colorado, a very popular 10K race. And we're going to be looking at fatigue data from this race scenario. So in order to do this, first we have to make the apples-to-apples comparison following step number 1 of the analysis process. So I'm going to be comparing within a run to make this comparison. So first, let's take a look at the Stryd Footpath tool. So if you have not seen it before, what the Stryd Footpath tool allows you to do is pull up a run, and then we can visualize the footpath from across that run. So here I'm looking from a side perspective. In order to add a perspective on this, I can turn on the reference image. So now we can see the left and right footpath from the run, and this is the average over the entire duration of the run. We can also turn on a 3D perspective to add even more perspective on what we're looking at. We can look at the footpath from a back view, a top view, and then also a side view and rotate it around in 3D space. So for the sake of comparison here, I'm going to be looking at from the 2D view and from the side view here. So I'm going to be comparing within a run, and what I can do is I can open up this same run and create two timelines here. So what I've done here is I pulled in the run on the top timeline. I've selected a section of the run from the start, and I pulled in the run on a second timeline here, and I've selected a section in the later part of the run. And what we can see here is that the left footpath, which is represented in the yellow line, and the right footpath, which is represented in the blue line, we can see this changes over the course of the run on the right side, but the left side stays pretty stable here. So for example, this top timeline is that solid line, and then the second timeline is that dashed line. And we can see that footpath starts to contract later in the run on that right side of the body. So the question is, why did this happen? Why did the footpath change on the right side of the body, but not on the left side of the body? And one of the conclusions I came to from looking at my data is the impact loading rate was higher on the right side of the body versus the left side. The impact loading rate was 3% higher on that right side. And in case you're not familiar with the impact loading rate is, this is a metric we introduced as part of the next gen Stryd. And the impact loading rate represents the initial rate of increase in vertical force as the runner contacts the ground with their foot. So effectively, higher values mean more force is applied at a faster rate, and lower values mean force is being applied at a lower rate. So why is impact loading rate important? So this allows you to quantify real-time mechanical load on the lower body. And this can help runners accurately track changes, particularly large changes, to help you maintain and regain lower body mechanical health to keep you running at your best. So in this case, since that impact loading rate was 3% higher on the right side, we see that start to have a massive and a pretty significant and noticeable change on the footpath on the right side of the body. Where the left side, the impact loading rate was normal, I was able to maintain that consistent running form throughout this race. So now the question is, what do I do with this data? And the use case I want to focus on here is manage injury risk and training load. So what I'm going to be doing is regularly assessing my personal feeling and data to ensure I do not exceed that sustainable load on the right side of the body and increase the injury rate. So now we're going to be looking at fatigue analysis number 2, and we're going to be looking at a threshold run. So once again here, I pulled up a threshold run here, and I'm going to be making a comparison within the run where I'm going to be comparing that first repetition versus the later 2 repetitions. And we can see there that this is the second by second view, kind of that graph view on the Stryd Power Center. And this run was done on a treadmill. You can see the power and the pace is very consistent for each of the repetitions. That's because the intensity on the treadmill is set at a constant rate. So this also helps. This also helps control for external factors such as, and when you run outside, you might run into different surfaces. You might run on different grades. When you run on the treadmill and make those footpath comparisons, you basically have that really, really, really great direct comparison across different sections of your run. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to be looking at the same strategy I did earlier, where I can pull up 2 timelines of the same run, and I can select different sections to compare them against each other. So I've selected this first repetition here. That's in the solid line. And now I'm going to select the third repetition here in the dashed line. And we can see that there are pretty big changes from the first repetition to the third repetition. And as we just saw in that first case of the race, there were fatigue-related changes as part of that footpath change. But one of the key things to do when you're looking at your footpath is to gain context. And I start comparing all the repetitions against each other. And I actually noticed that it wasn't just the third repetition or the final minute of the third repetition that changed. It was actually the first repetition that was different. Where if I compare that second repetition and third repetition together, we see that they basically are identical. The big change here is that first repetition, the footpath was far higher in terms of in terms of the back kick, in terms of the swing through. And we can see there are pretty major changes from the first repetition against the second and third repetition. So what this indicates to me is actually a warm-up trend where I was not properly warmed up when I started my run and my footpath hadn't stabilized, and perhaps I could have benefited from some higher intensity, shorter warm-up reps so I could have a more stable footpath in the start of my run versus kind of finding that later in the run there. So once again, just to look at this data once more here, we can see that that first repetition, the footpath is far larger in area. And as I got to the second and third repetition, we see that that footpath started to stabilize, and I was able to keep that more consistent running form later in the repetitions. So, in the future, I'm going to consider adding in some of those warm-up reps. And now I'm going to be looking at fatigue analysis number 3. So in the first case, I looked at fatigue. In the second case, I learned about warm up, and now I'm looking at kind of a mix of the two. I'm kind of seeing the cost of not warming up and the impact that had on fatigue. So here I did a continuous threshold run. So once again, I can pull that up in the second by second view on the Stryd Power Center. Once again, I was running on the treadmill, and we can see I was keeping a consistent power and a consistent pace from the start of the run to the finish. And when I pull up my Stryd footpath here, I've grabbed a screenshot here. We can see the first half of that run and the second half of the run are far different. And this is a distinctly different trend than I saw in the repetition case. In that repetition case, we kind of saw that the first few minutes there were unstable, but as I got to the second and third rep, my running form really stabilized. In this case, the running form never really stabilized. It was constantly changing throughout the course of this threshold run here. And we can see once again that comparison by pulling up the two timelines and comparing the start of the run versus the second half. We can see the difference there, and we can see that running form never really stabilized across that effort there. Where even if I select kind of that section at the end there, we can see it was even changing within the end of the run there. And my take on this is that once again, I did not warm up for this run properly. I did do a warm up, and then I took approximately a 10-minute break, over a 10-minute break before I really started the working set there. And what this indicates to me is that even though I did warm up, I could have benefited from not taking such a big break between the warm up and the working set. And also, once again, completing some of those higher intensity repetitions to get my body primed so I could find that more stable running form as I started my threshold. And we can even see that in the impact loading rate. We can see the impact loading rate was constantly shifting from the start of the run to the end of the run there, and that it never really even stabilized in terms of the running form on the left or right side, that it was even changing between left and right side. So how I'm going to make this data actionable is I do want to complete some warm-up reps, and also not ensure that I do not take such a long break between my warm-up and my working set there. And then the second thing I noticed is that looking across all the data from the threshold run on the treadmill and that continuous threshold run on the treadmill, that typically my cadence would increase as I kind of got warmed up more. So we can see here in this first rep, my cadence was around 155, where that second and third rep, the cadence increased to 158 there. So this indicates to me is that I want to be mindful of having a form cue, and that when I see those cadence values also stabilize, this can be a great indicator that my form is also stabilizing, which can be fantastic and kind of be my indicator that I am warmed up properly and I am ready to perform at my best. So those are some really the incredible new features and analysis process you can follow with Stryd Duo. So we've just announced that auto sync feature, so you can just go run with your Stryd Duo, open up your Stryd mobile app after the run, and instantly get this awesome footpath information. And then that is the 3-step simple analysis process you can find to start getting insights from your Footpath and start getting insights from your Stryd Duo in terms of both of those second by second metrics and that Stryd Footpath information. And once again, this is all available now. You can head over to stryd.com/store and embark on your journey today with your either the Stryd Duo or just a single Stryd pod to get that power data and start guiding all your runs to the correct intensity. So once again, that's available at stryd.com/store if you want to get your Stryd Duo and start running with Stryd Footpath, including the new auto sync feature we just released today. So we're going to take some questions. I know I have some questions in the chat here, and I'm excited to answer them. If you have questions, put them in the chat, and I will be answering that. So we have a question from Aaron that says, is offline data automatically synced as well? So this new feature release, it only syncs the Stryd Footpath information. So you don't have to be concerned that offline data will also come into your account. That still needs to be manually synced if you want that data. So there's no concerns on that. That only the Stryd Footpath information will be synced automatically. We have a question from the special one saying, does it take into account leg strength training for fatigue? So if you are completing specific leg strength training on either the left or right side of your body, or you're training both sides of the body, you will see that reflected in the Stryd metrics as basically your leg condition improves. So one of the metrics you can look at, and let me pull this up briefly here for a run here. One of the metrics you can look at is the leg spring stiffness. And the leg spring stiffness is an index of how effectively you recycle energy. It's kind of an index of how stiff the muscles and tendons and bones and ligaments are inside of your leg. And these can be advantageous because the higher the leg spring stiffness is, the more energy you're recycling. And one of the things you can look at in terms of left-right differences is this new leg spring stiffness balance metric enabled by Stryd Duo there. So we can see my leg spring stiffness balance is 50-50. My ground contact time balance, it's around 50-50 as well in terms of, and also the vertical oscillation balance. So in terms of the ground contact time and the leg spring stiffness, I'm already pretty balanced. So if I want to improve my my leg spring stiffness, I would do that on both sides of the body by doing, for example, plyometric exercises or following drills as part of the Stryd training plan, and look to improve this overall leg spring stiffness value. But for example, let's say my leg spring stiffness value was higher on the left side by a few percentage points, and I thought, for example, maybe I could strengthen the right side specifically. I might do some specific exercises to, such as single-legged hops. We have some great demonstration videos on our YouTube channel with different drills you can do. Check that out at the Stryd YouTube channel and see if I can kind of even that leg spring stiffness out between the left and the right side of the body. So to answer your question, the special one, does it take into account leg strength training? You will see that reflected in your Stryd data as your leg condition improves. So a follow-up question from Aaron saying, I have Stryd Duo synced with a Suunto watch. I have to do both an offline sync and Footpath sync after every run. And that's correct, Aaron. You will have to continue to do that offline sync manually for the Stryd Duo to get those second by second balance metrics, such as the leg spring stiffness balance, the ground contact time balance, the impact loading rate balance. It will be necessary to continue to do that offline sync. So we have a question from Jonathan saying, if running on a sloped surface, will that show up in the visualization? In other words, the pods track their position relative to each other or each relative to the ground. And the Stryd footpath information we're showing is a closed footpath, so it'll always start and stop in the same place in terms of this visualization. What you're referring to is kind of an open footpath, which we don't offer at this moment because it becomes far harder to analyze consistently. But as you can see, even if I was running on a slope as I am here, we can see the grade is 0.8% and 1.1% here in the lower timeline. We can see that footpath is always closed. So we have a question from WordGod saying, why does the Garmin setup guide recommending turning off running power? That 0% execution score after every workout is stressing me out. So what Wergata is referring to here is some Garmin watches do offer running power just using a combination of GPS and other sensors on the watch using purely sensors based on the wrist. This data is unrelated to Stryd, and there's effectively no advantage to having that Garmin value turned on. So we recommend turning that off. And in order to evaluate the execution score of your workouts, we recommend to do that in the Stryd app on your phone and the Stryd Power Center. That'll show you how you completed each of those workout segments. So, um, you know, once again, we recommend turning that running power value off on the Garmin watch and just relying on the data from Stryd, and then not worrying about that 0% execution score because you'll be analyzing your workout on the Stryd app instead. So we have a question from Tom saying, will you make the single footpath visualizations for non-duo users with just one foot pod? So great question, Tom. Basically, the process here for our thinking on the Stryd Duo is that we're in the learning process. We've just introduced this data for the very first time to the running space, being to visualize the footpath outside of the laboratory, in the field for every run, capturing it for, from the start to finish across a variety of conditions. And we are basing the early phases of learning from this data and learning how it's best applied on both sides of the body. And as you can see that there are changes, the left side and the right side don't always fatigue equally. For example, if the impact loading rate is higher on the right-hand side, you can have more fatigue on one side of the body versus the other. So we're in the process of establishing those best practices and that learning for this data for the first time out in the real world. And based on this learning, then we're going to look to expand this feature and see what can happen, what can be made possible for future updates in terms of bringing this footpath data and making it more accessible to more Stryd users. We have a follow-up question from Wergod saying, is there a way to get the Stryd power to work with a normal? And right now, the Stryd data is only accessible via that Stryd Zones data field on the watch and via that Stryd workout app. So you must place that Connect IQ data field called the Stryd Zones data field in the running mode on the watch. We've done some fantastic work with our recent updates in the Stryd Zones data field to give that native-like experience and even take it past what you can do with just the native workout screen on the Garmin watch. So we definitely recommend to use that Stryd Zones data field, and we think it offers an even superior experience compared to the native fields on the Garmin watch. So if you have questions, put those in the chat. I wanted to take a moment to review the big feature release we had today and make sure you are all, getting the best process here on how to get set up. So today we announced the Stryd Footpath Sync, and this allows you to unlock your running insights easier and faster than ever. And the simple three-step process here, all you have to do to get your footpath information is after you update the Stryd mobile app and update the firmware on your Stryd Duo pods, you'll be able to run with Stryd Duo with your compatible watch. That footpath data will be collected on the Stryd Duo pods. After you finish the run, all you have to do is open up the Stryd mobile app to sync that data. And then once that's done, you can immediately go view your footpath information. So you can go tap into the updated calendar view on Power Center and tap that footpath sync icon, and you'll be able to see your Stryd footpath data and start analyzing it. And once again, this is available today, so you can download that Stryd mobile app update the Stryd Duo firmware, and you're going to have that auto sync enabled. And that's all we have for today, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Try out this new feature. Share your footpath learning insights in the Stryd community on Facebook. And definitely subscribe to the Stryd YouTube channel for further videos on how to get the most of your footpath and get the most of your Stryd data. Tap that subscribe button or follow us on our X account at Stryd Running, or follow us on Facebook at the Stryd page on Facebook there. So that's all I have for today. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us, and enjoy the new feature.